Even though ancient Egypt is long gone, its memories are kept alive because archaeologists continue to unearth its glories and splendor. Over 3,000 years ago, one of the oldest cultures in human history flourished along the River Nile in northeast Africa. After Egypt was captured by the Greeks, Romans, and eventually Muslims, the splendors of the ancient civilization were hidden below layers of these many cultures, but have been rediscovered hundreds of years later when historians and archaeologists chose the study field now recognized as Egyptology. Egypt is home to a vast and perplexing treasury of history, including King Tut's magnificent tomb, Oxyrhynchus papyri, the Rosetta Stone, and papyri carrying Christian songs and mystical spells. Archaeologists are still unearthing these old sites and treasures. The slum statues. 2 statues were uncovered in a Cairo slum in 2017. The first was a 26-foot tall giant, and the other was a limestone sculpture of the top half of a life-sized man. The life-size statue is said to belong to Pharaoh Seti II, but the giant sculpture's identity is unclear. Unfortunately, the yet-to-be-identified king was buried in the murky waters. His head was extracted from the muck using a forklift, but it was missing some of its facial features, making identification impossible. It was said to have belonged to Pharaoh Ramesses II. The upper half life-size sculpture of Pharaoh Seti, Pharaoh Ramesses' grandson, and its ruins belong to a temple built by Pharaoh Ramesses II. One could only imagine how massive the statue sculpted in Ramesses' honor as one of Egypt's most revered rulers will be. It was uncovered in the Meteorite slum, where dwellings are unfinished and roads are unpaved and made of quartzite. Ironically, the ancient Egyptians believed that the sun deity created the earth in this Meteorite slum. The 2 statues are said to be one of Egypt's most remarkable discoveries. However, these statues require restoration and additional research. King Tutankhamun's tomb. One of the most renowned archaeological discoveries to date is undoubtedly Tutankhamun's tomb in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. Tutankhamun's tomb was found in 1922 by Howard Carter and his team, filled with incredible items including the late king's famed death mask. Howard Carter and his team obtained access to the tomb on November 26, 1922. Tutankhamun, popularly known as the Boy King, died as a teenager. After the analysis of King Tut's remains, it appeared that he had a lot of health conditions that required him to walk with a cane. He worked to bring back Egypt's original polytheistic religion for most of his reign, which was disrupted when Pharaoh Akhenaten, his father, began a revolution that emphasized the Aten, the sun disk deity, as the most supreme deity. This was a tomb unlike any other, yet it housed all of the riches of its owner. With over 5,000 objects discovered, it was one of history's most remarkable archaeological findings. King Tutankhamun's tomb might not have been discovered if Carter had given up or had not been so persistent. The Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone contains a decree that validates Pharaoh Ptolemy V's ability to rule Egypt at 13. This decree was written by priests. The stone is interestingly unique since the decree was inscribed in 3 different languages: Demotic, Hieroglyphic, and Greek. At the time of the stone's discovery, the researchers could only read the Greek decree, but since the Greek decree carried the same message as the Demotic and hieroglyphics, it aided in their translation. This enabled the reading of Demotic and hieroglyphic writings. The stone was discovered in 1799 by a team accompanying Napoleon's military expedition. The Rosetta is now in the British Museum after it was captured by the British. Egypt has requested that Britain bring the stone back to its rightful location. Oxyrhynchus papyri. Archaeologists Grenfell and Hunt uncovered more than 500,000 18-year-old papyri fragments between 1896 and 1907. The fragments were found by these archaeologists in the deserted town of Oxyrhynchus. Oxyrhynchus was a famous ancient village in southern Egypt that thrived under the governance of the Roman Empire. The papyri survived for nearly 2 millennia due to the town's arid climate. The papyri contains things like Christian Gospels, mystical spells, and a wrestling match contract. Many of the papyri are now in the hands of the Egypt Exploration Society of the United Kingdom, which financed the expedition carried out by archaeologists Grenfell and Hunt, and are now kept at the Oxford University Museum. Academics have analysed and translated the papyri since the first fragments were found, but due to the massive size of the papyri's text, many papyri fragments remain unpublished. Golden Valley Mummies. The Valley of the Golden Mummies was discovered by prominent archaeologist Zahi Hawass and his archaeological team near Bahariya Oasis in the Western Desert, roughly 380 kilometers from Cairo. The archaeological discovery of this valley in 1999 stunned the entire world. The valley was filled with a multitude of golden mummies, assuring Hawass and this vast geographical area, which would necessitate extensive excavation effort, is unquestionably packed with mummies. 200 to 250 mummies were discovered in previous seasons. The mummies discovered come from the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, during the era when Egypt was dominated by the Romans. Regardless of the prevalence of Greek and Roman ruling elite views that were strongly impacted by ancient Egyptian religion, these excavated mummies illustrate the preservation of Egyptian religion during Roman control. The mummies were adorned with religious art, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and a gilded burial mask. The Silver King. The burial site of Egyptian pharaoh Susanes I was discovered by archaeologist Mone Pierre in 1939. He was the ruler of Egypt around 3,000 years ago. Tanis, a Nile Delta city, is where his tomb was discovered. Monte revealed the pharaoh was laid to rest in a silver casket wearing a gorgeous golden burial mask. The silver casket earned Susanes I the Silver King name. The tomb also contained Shabti figurines made to escort Susanes to the afterlife, and caponic jars used to preserve pieces of the pharaoh's organs. Although some of the artifacts did not survive due to the delta's humidity. Because it was found during World War II, the tomb received little publicity. Cairo Scroll. Years passed while an extraordinary relic sat undiscovered in the Cairo Egyptian Museum storage section. The origins of the leather books are unknown. Following World War I, it was bought by the French Institute for Oriental Archaeology. Nobody knows the identity of the seller, who was an antique broker. The leather manuscript was given to the museum shortly before the outbreak of World War II, where it remained unread until 2015. When the leather roll was later discovered, it was mostly damaged. After meticulous repair, the manuscript was said to be 4,000 years old, filled with vivid pictures of sacred and mysterious creatures and religious spells. The renowned Book of the Dead, which is also a compendium of ceremonies, is preceded by the 8-foot-long relic embellished on both sides of the manuscripts with writing and imagery. The Cairo Scroll, which dates between 2300 and 2000 BC, is the oldest leather artifact from ancient Egypt. The reader also learns the intricacies of how to enter a sacred location guarded by powerful magical entities from the new religious teachings. Pyramid Age Papyri. An expedition led by archaeologists Pierre Tallet and Gregory Marouard discovered a port along the Red Sea that was built during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu roughly 5,000 years ago. This port was founded in 2013. The Great Pyramid of Giza is among the discoveries found in the papyri, describing its construction of the largest pyramid to ever be built. According to the papyri, the limestone for the Great Pyramid's exterior casing was transported from a quarry in Tura to Giza via the Nile River, and a network of canals and one boat trip from Tura to Giza took nearly 4 days. The papyri also includes details of Khufu's reign in Egypt, revealing that Ankaf was the vizier in charge of constructing pyramids during the 27th year of Khufu's reign. The Kufu Ship. A cedar boat more than 4,000 years old, commonly known as the Kufu solar boat, belonged to Pharaoh Khufu in 2500 BC. Egyptian engineer Kamal el-Malak accidentally found the Kufu boat in pieces. It took Ahmed Youssef Mustafa 14 long years, who worked carefully and skillfully on over 1,000 pieces of cedar wood to restore the antique ship to its original state. Researchers are still trying to understand why the boat was built. Some believe it was meant to transport the king to the afterlife, and some believe it was used to transport the pharaoh to faraway kingdoms. Whatever its function, it's a massive 143-foot-long archaeological find. Weapons of Napoleon Bonaparte. Many overlords invaded ancient Egypt, and Napoleon Bonaparte also became one of them. In the early morning hours of 1798, he shocked the famed city of Alexandria by sailing with an armada of more than 100 warships. He fought the British valiantly with all determination to rule the ancient land of pharaohs until the temptation of power overwhelmed him. The English captured Egypt as Napoleon was plotting to overthrow the French government. Russian scuba divers uncovered relics of his army near Pharos Island, near Alexandria in 2014. The lighthouse on the island used to be 384 feet tall, making it the tallest structure in existence at the time. While investigating the waters around Pharos Island, the team discovered 18th century rifles, handguns, and even cannons that belonged to Napoleon's army. The cache is said to belong to the crew of the French ship Le Patriote, which sank in a battle with the British in Alexandria's harbour. Meteorite Jewelry. The world's oldest iron artifact. 9 meteorite beads found in northern Egypt are from space. The artifacts were discovered in 2 distinct tombs at a Gerzo burial site. Using archaeological finds, archaeologists precisely dated these meteorite beads to 3200 BC. The meteorite was blasted into thin sheets before being rolled into their finished state to make these beads. The jewelry in the shape of a tube was very pricey. 4 of these beads were tied together with other expensive jewels such as agate, lapis lazuli, carnelian, and gold. 3 more of these beads were strung to the waist of the same corpse. The other 2 were strung on the wrist of another corpse buried in another lavishly adorned grave. The cemetery, unearthed in 1911, contains the remains of those who died before the dynasty arrived in the 4th century BC. Even though the brittle and gritty meteoric iron was tougher than copper, which was more often used at the time, this ancient civilization had already mastered the smelting expertise to delicately hammer sheets as thin as 0.04 inches and shape them without generating any cracks. And that brings us to the end of this video. What do you think about these archaeological discoveries in ancient Egypt? Let us know in the comments section. Remember to like, subscribe, and click on the notification bell to get notified when we post a new video.